10 Minutes with Wild Wayne Cartwright. Now, today, I want to talk to you today about NCAA players getting paid. And also, I want to talk about the potential impact behind it. Now, many of you probably know that for several years, that goes back since the beginning of probably, I'll say even as far back as the last 50 years, is that players have been getting paid up under the table. There's been benefits, all that stuff's been given. And then back in 2021, they introduced name, image, and likeness. And then that just became something that has exploded. Now, a lot of people know that there's been the haves and the have-nots. And some of the stuff that I'm going to present to you today shouldn't be as much of a surprise. For many of you, it's just some education. I just decided to come on here today because I know that there's some different posts that are flying around and people have been wondering, what the heck is really going on with some of these, some of these headlines that just came out yesterday. So, in true Wild Wayne fashion, I'm going to give it to you. So here's a little bit of how it's explained, okay? There was an antitrust lawsuit that were filed by a group of individuals with some particular law firms, and it was formed back in 2016. And with these antitrust lawsuits basically said, hey, once NIL came out, they said, hey, we want our share of the money as well. A lot of these people, these are some of the people who were playing college football or playing college basketball. And when EA Sports put out the video games, they'd see their number, they'd see their name. Also, there was a lot of memorabilia that was being sold on their behalf, and they weren't getting any money. Well, these people, they said, well, we want our money from the times that, we should have been compensated. And so what the NCAA decided to do was they said, we're going to settle this. So with them settling this, because they knew they were going to lose, and they were going to lose real hard, it came up with what you see right here. So back damages will be owed to the athletes that are in these original 3 antitrust lawsuits. So it comes to the figure between 12 and 15,000 people, okay? Former student athletes. And there will be a distribution of about $2.8 billion, okay? Now, whether everybody gets a good amount of money out of this, who knows? About all these class action lawsuits. Sometimes you get involved in a class action lawsuit, you might get $18. But we'll see. I know lawyers are going to get their cut. So we'll see. Schools, primarily in the Power 5, are going to really, really generate a lot of extra buzz with this. They're going to be permitted to share revenue with athletes. Now, permitted means that it's not required. Now, being permitted means that you can choose to use the entire $22 million that's at your allotment over the 10 years of this settlement. Some will do it, some won't do it, but we'll see. But the fact of the matter is that schools are going to be permitted to pay athletes up to $22 million a year. I'll get into all that other stuff as we progress through this 10 minutes. Conferences, they'll be able to create their own rules regarding scholarship limits, revenue sharing, all of that good stuff. All right. But the one thing that the NCAA got out of settling this, besides paying money, is that athletes under this settlement can no longer sue the NCAA. And that's something that they wanted to make sure that they got done. All right, now, some of the common questions in this. How will the funds be equally distributed? That's a real good question. And you should stay tuned to see how that's going to happen. Which feeds into the next question. Will the non-revenue sports get a share? Obviously, football and basketball generally are sports that generates the most amount of money. Football in particular. And also we know a lot of the big programs like the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Michigans, and the Texas. They have money upon money that they earn from football and basketball. All right. Now, Title IX, how is this being affected? Well, obviously, you know, with Title IX, you have to have certain number of sports and opportunities made for female athletes. Well, equally in this kind of setup, you know, you're going to have to make sure that you do an equal or do a fair amount of payouts to their programs as well. And then the question is, what about scholarships? Well, I can confirm that as I was studying this, scholarships are actually still going to be around. And in many cases, it's going to be an increase in certain sports. All right. So just pay attention to that. But how will the funds be equally distributed? That's a really great question. All right. Now, here are some of the potential problems. All right. Now, what the NCAA and what the power leagues have said, they said, we don't want athletes to become employees. Well, they could become employees. And if they become employees, guess what happens when you're an employee? You get poor performance, you get fired. All right? Because if they're paying you now, they can get rid of you. All right? Programs and schools also could cut programs. They could cut some. They could cut maybe the golf team. Maybe they cut cross country. Maybe they cut swimming. They cut something that doesn't generate money to compensate to pay more for the athletes that they have. Let's say they put all their eggs in the basket of basketball. They put all their eggs in the basket of trying to make their football program bigger and better. Well, some of these programs might get cut to compensate for that. And then also the smaller conferences. All right. Yeah. Remember those folks, the group of five, the FCS in football, and then also the non-major conferences in basketball. They're probably going to fall even further behind the pecking order because the last point sets it up. The best players will continue to go to the big schools. And eventually, you're probably going to see a succession with these bigger schools going and making their own setup in these power leagues, right? So now the last burning question as we get towards the end of my 10 minutes here. What does this mean for HBCU athletics? I'm so glad you asked. Well, here's my take. First off, I don't think really the message or the method or just really the mission should change for us. We already know what the funding is. We know that the funding is going to continue to be an issue as long as we don't take a lot of actions to try to work towards that. Now, what I mean by not taking actions, what I mean by that is that we should be continually working at the drawing board. And I always said, you never leave the drawing board. You never leave the drawing board to say you go back to the drawing board. You stay at the drawing board. So what this means is that we have to be more creative and more strategic in the space of marketing. We have to be more strategic in the space of how do we get more funding and how do we distribute the funding that we have. Now, there are going to be players that are going to want to be at some of these big schools to try to make some of this big money. But everybody can't go big time. And so what that means is there's going to still be a pool of players and athletes that are available to still get to come to your schools. Let's not forget about that. Yes, there's a lot of money that's going to be made, but not everybody's going to be able to recoup it. Not everybody's going to have a spot on these rosters. Yeah, people are still going to transfer. They're still going to keep getting NIL money. They're still going to keep doing the things that they're doing even today. But what you're going to see is you're going to see some of these bigger places start getting a little more stricter and a lot more stiffer in terms of the people that they bring in. Because now it says that since we have to pay some people, I want to be particular about who I'm paying. I want to get a return on my investment. So what this ultimately means for HBCU athletics, It's no change. The mission's still the same, y'all. We still got to keep fighting. Still got to keep working. You can let this discourage you if you want. That's your right. But I'm here to tell you today, you shouldn't be discouraged, because there's that term, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah, this is a new day for NCAA. This is a new day for Power 5. This is a new day. But guess what? We're still HBCUs. We're still the athletes. We're still the schools. We're still the heritage. We still got everything we still need to do. Everything is right in front of us. Nothing changes. That's my opinion. You know, my love ain't gonna change regardless. And my fight's not gonna change regardless. I'm Wild Wayne Cartwright. That's my 10 minutes, y'all. See you next time.